Panthers jump on the Hurricanes early in Game 2, manage the rest of the game with losing Sam Reinhart, and it's May 22nd, and Sergei Bobrovsky has a shutout.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, May 23rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at MondoMan12, and joined here on a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show by Nich Fairbanks. You can follow him on X at Prudentia0. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. So the Florida Panthers defeat the Carolina Hurricanes by a final score of 5-0, a shutout win for the Panthers as they take a 2-0 series lead heading back to Sunrise. And they managed this with losing Sam Reinhart at the end of the first period. And the second line truly set the tone in the first period, creating 3 goals, and then the Panthers just managed things from there, and another shutout win for the Panthers. And Nick, wow, what an outstanding hockey game. And it's crazy because 2 years ago, when the Panthers faced off against the Carolina Hurricanes in Game 2 after they won Game 1 in quadruple overtime, the Carolina Hurricanes really pushed a lot of the offense then. I was kind of expecting that in game number 2 for the Canes, but 5-3 at the end of the first period. The second line was truly the line of the game, and man, did they frustrate that top line of the Carolina Hurricanes, especially Andrei Svechnikov.
Well, it comes no surprise, the second line's going to live up to its, it's, how should I say, their aura. We haven't really seen Matthew Tkachuk too much in these playoffs. He had went goalless for 10 games, finally pots one tonight, a big goal if you ask me. And then, you have Sam Bennett being Sam Bennett, doing Sam Bennett things. And now you have Verhaeghe that's putting the puck in the back of the net, although his shot was tipped tonight. But you know what? I don't care. It went in the back of the net. So it's good to see that the identity is still here, that they never quit. But what's funny to me is that both pregame shows have said that they expect Carolina to come out fast and to really take it to the Panthers. Where has that been? Like, they look a step or two slower, and they look like they don't want to win any battles whatsoever.
The difference between the Panthers and the Hurricanes is whenever the Panthers are going for a hit, the puck is still on the Canes' stick, while the Panthers, whenever they're ready to absorb the Carolina Hurricanes finishing a check, the puck is already out, and they're just getting there. There was a few times where the puck was in the Panthers' D zone. There's one of the wingers on the half wall, and there's already the center going north, puck support, and then they're backhanding it, and then whoop, they're already out of the zone. So you think with the possession heavy Carolina Hurricanes, with going into the first, after the first 2 rounds, 58% in shot attempt share. Through 40 minutes, they were 38%, a 20% drop off for the Carolina Hurricanes after 40 minutes. The 5, and that's not 5-on-5. After the second period, it was 21-5, so it equaled it out a little more. But that doesn't tell the whole story for this hockey game. And to think how hard Sam Bennett was on the puck, stripping Andrei Svechnikov twice in the 2 goals, and then that frustration penalty that Svechnikov took with taking a punch at Matthew Tkachuk, and then the Florida Panthers capitalize there with Sam Bennett scoring. And the thing is, Nick, that it's also, you could add on another goal scorer for the Panthers. 18 goal scorers with Gustav Forsling on that first one, on that first goal. But it all started with just the forecheck. If it wasn't one Panther coming in from one half wall and then the Carolina Hurricanes trying to rim it around, it was another one. So it was like literally no time and space for Carolina.
So for all this talk that Carolina has a suffocating forecheck, they had it a little bit in the first game. Let's be honest. They were able to, get some chances. This game, there was none whatsoever. Maurice had a masterclass plan. He was able to adjust and make the changes necessary. I have not seen Rod the Bod actually make the changes necessary. And I'll say it right now. This is probably why that team will not get over the hump, is because they fail to make changes when they need to, and they don't have the bodies or the personnel to take it to the next level. Now, what we saw in the first 5-10 minutes of this game, that's all you really needed to see what this game was going to be. It's very worrying if you're a Hurricanes fan. It is very delightful if you're a Panthers fan right now, and you have to wonder, can they get better? Can they get better when the moment gets bigger?
Yeah, and it's funny because you think about even from Craig Berube talking with the Leafs about everything's mental. I wonder if that's going to be the message from Rod Brind'Amour to his squad about everything being mental, because this is for the most part, the same group that the Panthers faced 2 years ago, and they were still having a hard time with their high end scoring. Yeah, there's promising players in Logan Stankovic coming in from the Mikko Rantanen trade, and all that talk about Svechnikov missing 2 years ago, and then he has a game like this, and then just the fact that the Florida Panthers were able to once again wear them down and also get into their heads. I mean, Brad Marchand got a little bit of revenge on Shane Gostisbehere, which he said it was no big deal that the same morning, and then he gets a cross check on him that went uncalled later on. Sebastian Aho was trying to mess with Nico Mikkola, the Condor, towards in the third period as well, when things were starting to get out of hand. I mean, that was another thing about just the Panthers, and to think that all of this with losing Sam Reinhart, which we'll discuss more about in segment number 3, but the fact that they had to continue rotating a different fourth liner onto that top line. We saw Gadjevich there. We saw Tomas Nosek. Not the first time we've seen Tomas Nosek on that line. And then even with Gadjevich on taking a shift on the second line, there was a feed that Verhaeghe had. I mean, Verhaeghe had 3 assists, and he almost had a fourth one with that chance to Jonah Gadjevich if Logan Stankoven didn't get on that back check. And then, my goodness, you thought that Carolina was going to go on one breakaway, and then Gustav Forsling with a diving sweep on Seth Jarvis, which there was a little bit of the line changes for the Hurricanes, which they had Svechnikov with Roslovic and Hall, and then a little bit of the change on the top line as well with Aho, Jarvis, and Martinuk on that line. So chasing Freddie Anderson, which I don't believe that this is – you can't put this game on Anderson, but you had to do the right thing and just getting him out and sending a message to how much the Panthers were just living in the blue paint with the deflection by Sam Bennett. Carter Verhaeghe trying to push the puck in and then ending up in the stick of Matthew Tkachuk, and then even on that wraparound later on, my goodness, living in the blue paint, which to think that even in games 1 and 2, the Panthers had a hard time getting there, and look what's happening. The riding the wave of the momentum. It's now 4 straight road games, actually 5 going back to 4 for the Panthers, 5 straight road games of 5+ goals.
So I think all the cylinders are going in this Ferrari that Paul Maurice said that he's got to get in control when he said he was going to be when he was in his introduction becoming the coach of the Florida Panthers. But you can tell the mentality of a team when you see how their coach reacts to calls and how they react on the bench. Game 1, Rod was hot after the Aho penalty, the retaliation. Listen, we've watched sports for a long time. It's always the guy that retaliates that's always going to get caught. Okay. Am I okay with what Lundell did as far as like getting the stick up high? I'm not for that, but listen, it drew a penalty. And then I think later on he said we lost the game because of that call. I'm like, really, Rod?
That early?
Come on, man. So, and now this game, I think it was after the first period, you just see him storm right off the bench and go right into the locker room. Like, Panthers are in his head. They're in Aho's head. They're definitely in Svechnikov's you-know-what, because that's basically what they were saying. And who else? Gostisbehere. Anybody who is important to that team right now, they are unraveled. They don't know how to play right now, and they don't know really like when to attack because they have Matthew Tkachuk there. They have Sam Bennett. Mikola is getting into it. Dmitry Kulikov will throw a hit, and you don't know who's coming. That's the perfect thing about this team. Everybody is in sync. They're going to hit you, and they don't care. They're going to finish, and they're going to take care of business.
Yeah, and same thing with hitting. If it's one person not delivering one, it's another, and if it's one goal scorer that's not getting on, it's another. So that's the luxury of this team and how they just continue to get at you. And I'm sure that a lot of Hurricanes players and fans are just throwing their hands up. It's like, what can you do now at this point? And just resulting in just 2 games that the Panthers have just left no doubt, at least, but still 2 more for the Panthers to get to in order to advance to the Stanley Cup final. But man, is it looking good early. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss our 3 stars of the game and the moment where we knew the game was won. We'll discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. And ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. Segment number 2 here on this Friday, May 23rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday, a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. Nich Fairbanks is back as the Florida Panthers defeated the Carolina Hurricanes by a final score of 5-0, as the Panthers got another road win. And now the Panthers, 10 wins right now, 7 of them coming on the road. So 3 stars of the game for the Panthers here in this shutout win for the Panthers. Sergei Bobrovsky is number 3. Although he didn't see many shots, 17 of them, 6 career shutout. And there's something about May 22nd, Nick, that the Panthers love playing on this day because they've gotten a shutout 3 years in a row on this day. Game 3, it was a 1-0 win. Sam Reinhart scored a power play goal. Last year, the Panthers win 3-0 against the New York Rangers. That was the game where Alexis Lafreniere tipped it into his own net. And then they get an empty netter after that. And then this year, a 5-0 win for the Panthers. So, one goal, 1-0, 3-0, 5-0. Odd numbers for the Panthers. And it's crazy to think that it incrementally got bigger as the years have gone on. Next year on May 22nd, it's going to be a 7-0 win for the Panthers.
Pencil that down for the schedule, please.
Yeah.
Tell the NHL they have to play that day.
It's funny because here's another thing. November 2nd is also a notable day for Sergei Bobrovsky because he twice now on November 2nd he played the Detroit Red Wings and he got a shutout. So there's something about certain dates for Bob. And also, here's a tradition for Bob. Every time he gets a shutout, he draws a name out of a hat for a bottle of wine to give to his teammates. And head equipment manager Teddy Richards helps him out with that. So once your name gets drawn, you can't re-enter. Okay, number 2 star, Carter Verhaeghe. 3 straight goals that were primary assists that he got the primary assist on for him. And obviously he was getting to the net. And on one of the goals, man, was Dmitry Orlov really high in the offensive zone, allowing that clear lane to the net before he got it to Matthew Tkachuk there. So, blown assignment by Orlov there. And then number 1 star, Sam Bennett. 2 goals, 1 assist. Benny's buddies gets more, another adoption fee, and just continuing to make it harder for the Panthers to keep him. 9 goals in the postseason for him. So, and honestly, an honorable mention, I want to give it to the top pair. I mentioned the Forsling sweep on Seth Jarvis earlier, and then Aaron Ekblad recognizing Roslovic broke his stick, got it to the boards, and then the Panthers were able to pounce on it with Sam Bennett's 2nd goal there. So your 3 stars, my friend.
So my 3rd star is going to be Gustav Forsling. I think the way that he pinched on that first goal, he was hesitant at first, and then he finally went in, and he was rewarded with staying with the play, and then he was rewarded with the goal. Very happy for him because I know he's been shooting his heart out just to try and get his own goal, because last playoff run, he was amazing. And his shot was just fine in the back of the net, so now he finally does, so congratulations to him. 2nd star, I'm going to give this to a coach, John Kojemi. If it was not for his video coaching or him watching video so much, I think the Panthers in a few games this season probably would not be on the better side of things. And I think tonight's timeout and them deciding to challenge was huge. So I want to make sure that he's input into the 3 stars here. And then first, as much as I want Sam Bennett to be a part of it, I'm just so happy for Sergei. He's had some rough games during the playoffs this year, but he's had the most shutouts now he's had in any playoff run. This is his 3rd, and he seems like he's getting better at the right time, and the team is taking care of him at the same time as well. So, Forsling, Kojemi, and then Bob.
Yeah, and to think that right now, actually, they have this game documented now on NHL.com. 2.13 GAA, 910 save percentage right now through 14 playoff games. And to think that, like you said, he didn't get off to the best of starts. It's funny, Nick, because you mentioned John Kojemi as one of your stars of the game, which was leading me to the moment where we knew the game was won. And when the Panthers called that timeout at the beginning of period number 2, 51 seconds in, the Canes clear the puck. It looked like that Matthew Tkachuk touched it, and then Sebastian Aho beat Sergei Bobrovsky. He was way out of his crease there. That was basically the only decision that Bob had, if we're being quite honest. And then it looked like it was going to be a 3-1 game. It's like, oh no, the Panthers lost Sam Reinhart. You're shuffling the lines. This is actually going to be a game. And then John Kojemi and Miles Fee, the video coaches, find a way to challenge, buy the Panthers more time. You only have 1 timeout in a game. And then then TNT had a broadcast on the broadcast, where they zoomed in and it was pixelated. I'm just like, my goodness, how did the Panthers video team see this one? That was hard even for me to see on when they showed it on TNT. So the fact that they gave themselves an opportunity to buy time, because I was talking about with Jacob, the difference between challenging in game 1, going from one period to the next. This one, if you were to challenge, even if you lost, you're not going into one intermission. So I thought that was a great moment for the Panthers to take that challenge. And honestly, sucked the air out of the building, and it's all the helium coming out of the balloon for the Carolina Hurricanes. So your moment where you knew the game was won.
So honestly, I think it was after the Panthers made it 3-0. To be honest, like in the first period, like you have Frederik Andersen, who's been just an amazing goaltender during these playoffs, and save percentage is ridiculous. And through the first 2 games, the Panthers have just shredded him. I think his confidence is probably shot, even though most of these goals are not his fault. They've been tipped by his own players, or Panthers have been getting their sticks on him. But there comes a period of like, hey, we need you to make a stop because the other guy at the other end is making stops and the team is helping him out. We need you to do that too. But as far as like the timeout, taking the time to review it, TNT didn't really have that good view when they were originally saying, oh, we don't know if Florida should challenge this. And I'm like, you know what? Let's wait for another angle. And they for sure had another angle, like from the blue line. And they were able to see exactly that it was Brent Burns who actually did push the puck back over. And I just remember being in the chat. I was livid. I'm like, Matthew, we're less than a minute in. We already lost Reinhart. And you do that. And then Bob gives off a softie 5-hole. Like, what are we doing? And then we see that. And they're like, okay, we're going to be fine.
Yeah, so thankfully the Panthers were fine. They were able to just allow themselves to clear the end very easily. And I mean, that crowd was restless, especially during when the Canes had one of their power plays. It was the one for too many men on the ice. The amount of perimeter-based hockey that the Canes had, a lot of old zone time. And then you hear the chants, shoot the puck. My goodness. I can't even it was really loud on TV. I could only imagine in person.
Shoot the puck. You're not going to hear Bob or Sergei. That crowd has really had nothing really to cheer about, unfortunately. And you see it on their face when they go to intermission or they go to a commercial. You just see the fans like this, or like, duck facing it, or they have their hands in on their face. I guess it's not a South Florida or Miami Heat thing that people just leave games either.
Yeah. Yeah, Panthers doing that to multiple crowds now for them.
Booing everybody.
Yep. So it's the Florida Panthers effect on the road. So, but we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where the Panthers are on their way home for a chance to take a 3-0 series lead. But then we're also going to discuss the status of Sam Reinhart and what was said after the game. We'll discuss that more next year on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Segment 3 here on this Friday, May 22nd, 23rd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And a little bit of housekeeping here for some Panther prospects. The Memorial Cup starts on Friday. The round robin tournament begins, and you can watch it all on NHL Network. The very first game of the round robin, Panthers defenseman Luke Coughlin will take on Hunter St. Martin and Medicine Hat starting at 7 p.m. once again on NHL Network. And also, Michael Bublé is partnering up with the Panthers on the Prowl in their attempt to try to find a cure for cancer. So also that for a little bit of housekeeping. But Nick, the Panthers set a record for most road goals in their first 9 games. The previous record was the Colorado Avalanche when they won the Stanley Cup most recently in 2022. We spoke about that Colorado Avalanche team outscoring a lot of their issues. That team only lost 4 times in their entire Stanley Cup run. But the Panthers just I'm trying to do some quick math here for the Panthers. 43 goals in 9 games, almost 5 total.
And they're doing it with defense. first.
Yeah.
That's what's most impressive about it.
It's just an incredible feat that the Panthers have found themselves in. And it's funny because you think about comparing these two runs. I mean, I'm talking about 2023 and 2025 because last year the Panthers only had one series where they started off on the road, and that was the conference final against the Rangers. But you think about, the momentum of playing playoff hockey from January on. It's two different stories, two different missions, and two different fourth lines even for the Panthers. We were even talking about the fact that replacing a fourth line with a fifth line, but then you're not putting out Eric Stahl, Colin White, and Giovanni Smith out there, or Ryan Lomberg out there for the Panthers. Let's not forget that Eetu Luostarinen at the end of the conference final in 2023 got hurt.
Yep.
Couldn't even play in the final. So that's another thing for the Panthers on just how much deeper they are. And I remember talking about it in 2023 about how much home ice could bite them later on because of the fact that they don't have as much of the depth. But man, is the depth of the Panthers just on another level. And it was different goal scorers in game one, 4 different ones in game 2 with Sam Bennett scoring twice. That's the luxury. And 2 droughts ended. We spoke about Matthew Tkachuk, but also Alexander Barkov. In this stretch of 4+ goals in the last 5, Barkov hadn't scored, and at least he got one on a redirection from Aaron Ekblad's shot.
So it's very impressive what this defense has been able to do. So I think they lead the league so far with 34 or 35 points as a unit. They have 13 goals now, and they're just getting better. Not only are they getting better in their own end, they're finishing their checks. They're actually jumping up in the play. They're creating havoc. They're creating turnovers. They're doing everything that this system has been beat into them by Maurice. And I don't mean like he physically beat them, but I mean like this is something that he's been really just getting them into a mindset of ever since he got here. And it continues to multiply when they bring new guys in. More guys buy in. They understand what the system is. And if you look at it, it's pretty simple. As long as the defense pinches, you have the forwards that come back and help you out. And that's been a huge difference. You talk about the depth. The depth is only, it only matters when they're effective and they're doing their jobs. And to see that these guys, it doesn't matter who comes in now on the fourth line, they're doing their job. Now, the one question we do have to ask ourselves going into game 3 is who is going to replace Reinhart, because between you and me, we talked about it before we came on here, really doubt he's going to play game 3 at least.
Yeah, and that was as the Panthers were trying to gain the zone. Sebastian Aho tried to finish a check. The knee bent a certain way that didn't look good. And he was grimacing on the bench and ruled him out immediately to start the second period. Didn't even give the media a chance to say, to ask a few questions, at least online, not in a media availability, but immediately ruled him out. So can't necessarily make assumptions, but I'm not gonna even speculate what the type of injury is, but it did not look good from the freeze frame from it. I was grossed out just by looking at it, and I just wonder. I mean, Jesper Boquist went on that top line and succeeded well. I would probably say that Carter Verhaeghe goes back on that top line, maybe temporarily, and then you put maybe Jesper Boquist back, and he's played some second line minutes, especially in November. That was a good stretch of time where Jesper Boquist was really getting in, but the second line had such an outstanding game with Carter Verhaeghe being.
That up.
That's hard. That's a tough decision. And hey, that's another thing about depth that the Panthers that the Panthers have that luxury when it comes to it. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to assume it's Jesper Boquist that comes in.
You have to think so because he's got the foot speed that they need to get it in on the forecheck. He can handle himself. Now, is he the most offensively gifted player? No, I would probably say Mackey's more gifted. He's got a better shot, but you're now in a series that you are in complete control of, and you do not want to give up size and you don't want to give up speed. So what does Boquist have? He has both of those basically. So I think you're right. I think they slot Boquist on the top line, and look what he did last time he was on there. So I feel good about that. He can just slot right in. Everybody plays better with Barkov. We'll just see what Maurice wants to do, though, if the game is a little tight, if he pulls Boquist back and starts pushing up, I don't know, like a Nosek or a Greer just for extra sandpaper, just because you can't replace Reinhart. His IQ, how smart he is, what he's able to do with the puck, how he's able to extend plays and his shot, you're not replacing that. So what's the next best thing that you're going to do? So,
yeah, and you said it best. Your second best defensive forward, best goal scorer. This was a 57 goal scorer from the previous year. We could say next man up all we want, but there's no next man up when it comes to Sam Reinhart. No way in hell.
No. Nope. Not at all.
So, thankfully, the Panthers were able to manage things. They Paul Maurice even spoke about it in his interview with Jackie Redmond coming out of the intermission on just the players are running it. They are calling each other's number when it comes to who's next on the ice. So it's just, once again, a group of very accountable people coming in. And one more thing before we leave. Greg Wyshynski spoke about this a few days ago on just the amount of accountability that the Panthers have with one another. He spoke about a situation with Nate Schmidt. He made a certain play where in the preseason where the Panthers that the rest of the bench didn't like, and they brought him over and said a few words. We don't do that here. to a newcomer. So
yeah,
I love it.
Get out or get out.
Yeah,
pretty much. That's the culture. Like you're either with us or you're going to be going against us, and I promise you don't want to be against us.
And he's fit right in with giving himself an opportunity to hopefully get a payday after the season, where even if it's outside of South Florida. So that's another thing on just how the Panthers continue to keep each other in line, even each other for them. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Panthers win 5-0, take a 2-0 series lead, and are back to Sunrise with a chance to take a 3-0 series lead Saturday night at 8 p.m. Tell everybody where they can follow you online.
Thanks for having me again. Great to have a great post game and a win to go up 2-0. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is the conference final, and anything can happen. But you guys can follow me on X at Prudential0, and I'm looking forward to Saturday and next week with you, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and see you next week. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Steele Roden, Locked On NHL Prospects, and the new Locked On NHL Game Night. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.